Alright guys, this is going to be another longer video. I'm going to cover magic and magic combat. Um, it's typically, it's not complicated, but a little bit more complicated than standard combat, but not by much. Like I said in the combat video, it follows the same tropes. You just use a different skill, and there's slightly different. You use a different stat, my bad. There's slightly different aspects to casting magic and all that versus standard combat. So, anyways, here we go. There's 4 different types of magic in War of the Veils. Um, you have common, healing, protective, and entropy. These are identified by a C for common, H for healing, P for protective, and E for entropy. Um, your common magics are like your earth, fire, wind, water, and your mystical damages, and ice is considered water damage, just throwing it out there. Um, your entropy magics are stuff that causes units to, say, skip their movement phase or um, have a minus to their attack roll or their defense roll or something like that. Just negative, like, impacts to like stats and everything. Protective magics, pretty self-explanatory. Damage negation, raising of like a defense value, stuff like that. And obviously healing, no brainer. You heal a unit. Um, all of the magic falls into like a, as far as like resolution goes into like a last in first out resolution method. It's pretty tried and true, and it's simple enough to remember. um, Aside from there being 4 types of magic, there are 3 sources of magic. That would be your magic units, the world magic, and actions. And I'll get into world magic and actions in a couple of seconds. Um, with magic combat and just magic in general, let's see if it'll focus. It's a standard. I'm trying to adjust my shirt here. Sorry, guys. Fuck it. it's it pops off just like normal combat, where you initiate like, hey, I'm going to cast this spell on your unit. Um, the only thing that's different, or one of the things that different rather, is if you'll notice and if it'll focus. This is terrible. Um, Come on. I know you can do it. Alright, let me take it out of the sleeve, see if that'll help. Alright. If you'll notice, maybe if I just shove it right up there. There we go. If you'll notice, there's a CT and a CR. The CT stands for casting time, and the CR stands for casting radius. Um, During the casting time, like the demonic pact that this elven warlock has, the CT is 1 turn. If this unit gets hit or anything during that 1 turn, the spell has to be started over. But the instants, they take place like right then and there, almost like an attack. Um, so with that in mind, as I said in the combat video, it happens like normal combat. except you would use the little black shield right there. It's really having a time focusing right now. Wow, it wasn't this bad earlier. Okay, there we go. You'll use the little black shield as the magic defense instead of the blue shield like in combat. So basically, this human soldier has a magic defense value of 3. You would roll your d10, and if you do a 3 or over, you hit with the spell. Then the human soldier gets a magic defense roll, which is the same concept as with standard combat. You would roll your d10 to see if you hit a 3 or below. If that happens, then it's kind of more or less the same aspect or concept rather of like standard combat, where like regardless of what the spell is, it just deals 1 damage to the unit that was being hit by the spell. Now again, there are certain things that happens when you roll a natural 10. Whenever you roll a natural 10 and for the magic attack roll, it's a master effect. You basically get a +1 to like the spell damage, but not only like the spell damage, but if it deals like we'll say poison damage, or if there's some sort of like negative stat adjustment, like a -2 to their attack roll or anything like that, it gets enhanced by 1. So it will become like a 2, like a -2 to attack roll or whatever. So there's that, but it doesn't really affect spell duration. So it would still only last for however long the spell says that it lasts. And if you roll a natural 10, just like in standard combat, regardless of any kind of modifiers that are going on, it's an automatic master effect spell, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The downside to rolling a 1 on the magic attack roll is that it's considered a backfire, and basically the unit that's casting the spell just takes 1 damage. Now, with the same respect to a magic defense roll, just like in a standard defense roll, if you manage to roll a natural 10, the spell is completely negated. Like, it just fizzles, nothing happens to the target of the spell, it completely fizzles like nothing ever happened. One other thing is that like you need to pay attention to the casting radiuses and the casting times. Those 2 factors are enough to complicate things, to, as I've noticed in playtesting, kind of like not really anger people, but make people feel like they messed up, because they didn't use their movement phase to position correctly to get them within the casting radius and all that. So again, pay attention to that. If you're using like a protective spell on your own unit, there's no need for a magic defense roll, because it's kind of implied that your unit isn't trying to resist that spell. The same goes for healing spells. If it's cast on your own unit, you don't need a magic attack roll or anything like that. It's an automatic. It's done because the unit it's implied that they're not trying to resist the magic. Now, one other thing well, two, I guess, that are different with the magic and magic combat in general is that there's, aside from the different types of magic, there's different times when you can play them. Like your common magics, your protective magics, and your entropy magics, they're all generally played during the combat phase. Your healing magics are played during the end phase, so you can heal your units and all that after combat is over and done with. You can heal them. Um, I know that seems a little strange, but it works out pretty well. If a unit has both a protective and a healing spell, they can use both during the same turn. They just obviously have to use their protective spell during the combat phase and their healing spell during the end phase. So your magic users that have more than one type of spell, they're generally pretty handy to have around. Um, I think I kind of covered most of everything. I guess except for like your typical like spell negation as far as like player spells go with counter spells and all that. Um, if a counter spell is played against like a world, oh yeah, I need to cover those. A world magic or an action, like standard stuff, it just goes to the graveyard. If a unit magic is countered, nothing happens to the unit itself, just the spell fizzles and doesn't nothing takes place. So, with that being said, I guess I should probably cover the two like player spell types. Um, those are your actions and your world magics. Now, your actions can be played during only during your turn. So let me find some in this deck here. Okay. So obviously, standard card layout. You have your, these are older versions, but you have your resource cost up in the top, what it is, like as far as a world magic, and what it does. The same goes for your actions, if it'll focus. Your resource up the top, what it is, what it is, and then, what it does. Your, again, like I said, your actions, sorry, camera. There we go. Your actions can only be played during your turn. Anytime during your turn, doesn't matter what phase it is or whatever, it's during your turn. Your world magics can be played at any time during the game. Doesn't matter if it's your turn, doesn't matter what phase it is during your turn, or if it's during your opponent's turn, during whatever phase they might currently be in. Obviously, it depends on, if it says play only during X phase or whatever. You have to follow those rules. But typically, world magics are played at any time, any place during the game. And obviously, once the action or the world magic resolves, it just goes to your graveyard. End of story. Yeah, I believe that covers magic and magic combat, the different types of magic, all that good stuff. So yeah, pressing on with another video. I hope you guys are kind of getting a better understanding of the game, and I hope to at least record one or two playtesting sessions to kind of show you guys how a game plays out. So anywho, off to the next one.